The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you. If you can hear me, whether you're on YouTube or GoToWebinar right now, let me know. It helps a great deal, and I will appreciate it if you just let me know you can hear me. So thanks for watching. We'll go ahead and get going in here in 1 minute or so. So see you in a second. Okay. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Jeff Gibby here. We're going to go ahead and run a really quick webinar. So actually, I'm not sure how long today's webinar is going to last. There we go. We have to move on. I'm going to go through 10 tricks for MetaStock. So got 10 things that if you do to MetaStock, it'll operate faster, and things you should know, and just like some useful tips. So hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Oh, here, hold on. Getting some bleed through. All right, very cool. So the first thing that we're going to do though today is read the legal disclaimer. So today's demonstration is designed to instruct you on using MetaStock and the accompanying software plugins. Not a recommendation to buy or sell, but rather guidelines to interpreting and using specific indicators and features within the software. The information, software, and techniques presented today should only be used by investors who are aware of the risk inherent in trading. So MetaStock have no liability for any investment decisions based on the use of the software, any trading strategies, or any information provided in connection with the company. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, David and Vincenzo, for the audio check. If you're watching this on YouTube, either now or in the future, give us a like, a subscribe, and a comment. All of those things help. And as you know, we're always trying to chase that algorithm. So in any case, today we're not going to spend a lot of time. This is a video that I've kind of geared towards MetaStock users. So I didn't want to ignore the opportunity to say, though, that MetaStock has been rated the #1 software in its price category for 30 years in a row. And I'm going to do, if you haven't used MetaStock before, I'm going to do a special offer at the end. So, but that's it. That's the only MetaStock plug that you're going to get. This video is really more geared to kind of helping you as an existing user of MetaStock to understand exactly some things that are just going to make life hopefully a lot better for you. So I have questions opened. If you have questions as we're going through, feel free to actually chime in. Let's get started. I got 10 tips. Let's start with tip number 1. And this one is actually a really good one. I put this in front because I think it's just so helpful. As you know, if you've been using MetaStock for a minute, one of the things that's hugely advantageous, regardless of where you're at, is we're going to have really, really good data from Reuters, and actually Refinitiv is who it is now. But in fact, you know, any exchange that you want, any information, it's all available in a list. For the most part, though, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you just aren't interested in. Like if you're in the US, you might not be interested in being able to look at all the Australian mining stocks or the Indian stocks and that kind of stuff. It is a rather massive list as well. It's a huge database of instruments that are available. And what I would recommend is that you go in and set up the markets that you're actually interested in. If doing so is actually going to make MetaStock run a lot faster, it's going to make it easier to find the symbols that you're interested in because you don't have 32 different versions of Apple. It just makes it a lot easier to find your way around, whether you're working with a power console or flipping through charts or whatever it might be. The list itself actually runs a lot faster if you kind of go in and take care of this step as well. So this will take you one time. I'm going to go ahead and kind of walk you through how to do this in MetaStock. So I do have MetaStock open. I was kind of taking a look at US Bank Corp this morning, but let's go ahead and kind of go in. I want to show you how to adjust your public list. So I'm going to go ahead and click into the Power Console, just this P in the corner. And as you can see right now in my public online data list, I have 321,000 instruments that I'm interested or that are available. And we have everything from Asia, Europe, Middle East, Africa, North America, South America. There's some index constituents, there's some futures, that kind of stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and just say, okay, well, I'm going to tell MetaStock, these are the markets that I'm interested in, and those are the ones that I want to kind of keep updated. So what I'm going to do here is where it says public online data list, I'm going to go ahead and right click, and I'm going to go to manage public lists, okay? And what's going to happen here is all of the lists that you're seeing there are going to kind of load up here on the left-hand side. And what I can do is actually kind of go in and set up the lists that I'm interested in. And I can kind of organize them exactly the way that I want. I can add spacers and headers and that kind of stuff. So just to kind of keep this very, very straightforward, let's assume that I am here in the US. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm interested in mostly stocks, some options, optionable stocks, ETFs, that kind of stuff, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do, and you just customize it for you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I'm going to find the list that starts with North America. Going to go ahead and add that, okay? So this just adds the header for North America. I'm going to go ahead and add NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, NYSE AMAX. I'm going to go ahead and skip pink sheets, but you could add it if you want. I'm going to go ahead and add the ETFs. Going to add the list of the optionable stocks, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and not add in, I'm not really interested in anything else out of North America. So I've got North America set up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and add a spacer, okay? And that's just going to kind of help me keep a thing on the list. And I'm going to go add a few of the other things that I want to be able to look at. So I'm going to add the list header called futures, okay? And then let's just do the major, we'll do the CBOE, the CBOT, the CME, the COMEX, okay? And that's what we'll do for our futures list. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to add a spacer, okay? I'm going to add some index constituent. Actually, I want to add the indices. So I'm going to add the indices here, and I'll just do the top world indices. That'll include most of the indices that I'll ever be interested in, okay? Add another spacer, okay? And then a few things that I absolutely always like to have on my list is a couple constituents list. And those would be the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So let's go ahead and find that, Dow Jones Industrials. We'll go ahead and add that. We're going to go ahead and add the NASDAQ 100, the NASDAQ Composite, and the S&P 500, okay? And so that's, oh, and then if you want to, let's just add just a few. I'm going to go ahead and skip the industry groups. If you're interested, you could add those. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a Forex and just the major pairs, okay? All right, so now I've just kind of went in and identified the stocks that I'm interested in, the markets that I'm interested in, and those things that I want to follow. There's a couple things that I want to kind of point out here. If I go ahead and set up my list and I want to look at something that's not on the list, let's say I just want to look at a gold stock or something, as long as I know the symbol, I can still enter it into MetaStock and it'll still load. It just won't load it into all the lists all the time. So that's pretty cool. The other things, as you know, with like kind of some of the more recent versions of MetaStock, every month or so, you're going to get a note that your lists in MetaStocks have updated. You don't need to go through the process of doing this every time your lists update, because these lists will update. The whole list will update. This kind of just puts everything in order. In other words, like if something leaves the S&P 500 and something else is added, that will be handled automatically as part of the list update as well. If something starts trading on the New York Stock Exchange and that gets added to the list, it's going to be in New York Stock Exchange. There's no amount of manual work that's required later on to keep this active. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this and close it. So the number that we started with was like something like 331,000. Okay, right now we've got that narrowed down to 29,480. So a much smaller number in terms of what you're looking at from a day-to-day basis. Okay, you'll notice everything is set up exactly the way we set it up. I've got my equities, I've got my futures, my indices, and my constituents here. Okay, and it's going to be a lot easier. A couple reasons to do this is it'll be a lot easier to find the stocks that you're interested in. For example, if you wanted to find like a wheat ETF, for example, we're going to just go ahead and search for wheat. I'm going to search by name, and then I can see there's something that has NASDAQ in the name of it. No, actually, it's just nothing. There's actually, let's do this, wheat. Let's spell it right. Okay, that'll help. But we've got two in the New York Stock Exchange, two ETFs, or one ETF and a couple of option stocks, the wheat ETF and that thing. So, and then of course we have the wheat that trades on the Chicago Board of Trade. So it makes it easier to kind of find those things that you're interested in. The other advantage and the other thing that you're going to find really, really cool about this is when you have a chart open. Okay, if I have a chart open and I want to switch to a different chart, that's the list that's going to load. So actually, in this particular case, it didn't load the new list because I had to open up a chart. But when you're kind of swapping between instruments, I'm going to go ahead and close this chart. We'll open up a new one. But when you're swapping between instruments, that's the list that's going to load. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean. I opened up a chart of DIA. Now, if I swap to a different stock, it should, actually, maybe that requires a reboot, but it should list just the stocks that are on that public online list. So, all right, very cool. So that's tip number one. I'm judging by the length of that tip. I think we'll have a bit of maybe a full length video. We'll find out. Okay, let's go to tip number two. So tip number one, public list editor. Go in, define one time what you want to look at, and everything else is going to run a little bit faster, a little bit smoother, and it'll allow you to focus on the stuff that you're interested in. Okay. Tip number two, saving defaults. So this kind of applies with all of the all of the drawing tools that exist in MetaStock, the charting styles, all the stuff is kind of done the same way. I just noticed there's a typo on my PowerPoint. No big deal. But one of the things that, if you've heard me talk a lot about, I love the drawing tools, and particularly the fact that they can be measuring tools. So I'm going to show you with the drawing tools how you can kind of go in and set up defaults so that every time you kind of draw something, it's going to appear the same way. So we'll do it with trend lines, but I just want you to understand the process I'm showing you exists on all of the drawing tools. It exists on the indicators. It exists on the charting style. That's the ability to save a default, the text, the font, everything like that. So let's just say I'm playing with the trend line tool. You go ahead and draw a thing on the chart. And by default, I've already got it set up that it's going to measure the percent change. So this went up 85% over 424 periods. Now, the default for MetaStock for this trend line is not to include that measuring tool. So by default, it's actually saving that for me. It's saving the fact that it's blue. It's saving the thickness. And because I work a lot with trend lines, and probably you do as well, if you want to be able to kind of save the defaults, whether it's the trend line or the Fibonacci tools, maybe you have different numbers that you want to default out. Maybe every time you put a note on the chart, you want it to be the same text. You can automatically save the default. So that's moved in 19. So I wanted to show you exactly where to find that. So what I'm going to do here, I've got this drawn out. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the trend line to go into the properties dialog box. And right here, there's all kinds of cool things that we can change, and depending on the drawing tool that you're in, you're going to have different options. So on it, by the setting that I've saved is I want it to show a right arrow. You see a right arrow right here. I want it to show a label with performance information in percent. You can do points if you want to, and I want it to show the custom label. I have font selections. I can do color and style selections here, like the mine are always blue with a kind of a thing. Once I have all of those set the way I want them to appear, I just click on this defaults button. There's a little down arrow right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the current page as default. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and click on OK. And now every time I draw that particular trend line, I'm going to get exactly, it's going to show up immediately the same way that I want it to show up, the way I've asked it to show up every single time. So that's tip number 2. Now that also applies to all drawing tools and the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like, for example, if one of the requests that we would have for Fibonacci retracements is people would want to use their own levels. So if I have a Fibonacci retracement, I'm going to draw that on the chart right here, okay? If I want to change how the numbers appear, what lines, what colors, all that kind of stuff is absolutely changeable. In order to actually do that, just double click on there to go to Fibonacci properties, click on this little default and hit save current page as default. Once you do that, it's going to save that. Every time you draw that line, it's going to have the custom levels, the colors, the styles, everything that you've selected. So that's tip number 2. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and see if there's a typo on tip number 3, the data window. Okay, this is something that we actually included. We didn't include a data window in 18.0, and people wanted it back so badly that we put it back in immediately. And that's just so you can see what the values are and that kind of stuff. I actually used the data window quite a bit, and let me show you how to get to it. So we're going to go ahead and go into MetaStock. I'm going to go ahead and clear up some things here. I'm going to go ahead and delete this trend line, and I'm going to delete that Fibonacci. And the data window's right here. Okay, so if you just click on right here, this little, I guess it's a target, right? I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I'm going to go ahead and it'll open up kind of this floating box or this floating window. Okay, now I can leave this floating if I want. It is a dockable window, so I'm going to go ahead and just dock it over to the side. Here, we'll put it here. Okay, and there's a couple of different options that we added to the data window. Okay, the default option is right here. Whatever we point at is going to tell us the value of. So like if I point it right here, it's going to have the open, the high, the low, the close. Any of the indicators that are on the chart are going to show up. As you can see, the ATH volume levels are showing up, and those are also color coded, so they'll match the actual color of what you're pointing at. Okay. Now, the options that we added, some people wanted the ability to actually just look at the current bar data. So regardless of what bar they were pointing at, they wanted to see the current price all the time. So if you want to change that, there is actually a little option window as well. If I right click on the data window here and go to properties, okay, I can actually say the options that I have is display data from the mouse position, which is what I was doing. That's when I move it around, it's going to show me what I'm actually looking at. You can also have it show just the most recent bar on a chart, which would be the second option here. And you can have it just display the selected record. Now, the difference for that is if I do display the selected record, then what I want to do is actually come in here and select a record, and it'll actually show us where we've selected. So those are the 3 options for that for you. So no questions yet. Let's go to tip number 4. All right, very cool. Tip number 4 is application properties. I actually wanted to there's a few things in here that are very, very cool that I've learned that I wanted to point out. And so let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and kind of come in here, and we'll just talk about the ones that people like, the options that exist in MetaStock that people have asked about over the years. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go tools, and then I'm going to go to options. Okay, and we'll just kind of cover a few ones. By default, it'll restore a workspace on startup. I actually like this one because I have, when I start up, I usually have a layout that I open up that includes like the Dow, the S&P, the Russell, and the Qs. kind of like in a 4-screen layout. And so every time I start up MetaStock, I want to see what the market's doing. I have it restore that workspace that I closed down with, and it just does that automatically. And I can kind of see what it's doing without kind of, okay, looks like we're having a bullish day. Let's see what's going on. Looks like we're having a bearish day. Let's see what's going on. But I do like the display workspace on startup. It just gives you something to look at as soon as you get going. This right here, this down here is the status bar. It just shows you the system tester and whether you're getting data. If you want to get rid of it, you can get rid of it. It's not that big of a deal, really. I just leave it on. Okay. What's new on startup? Every time we release a patch, it'll give you a little bit of a note. Leave it on. We actually do some really cool stuff. I don't understand why somebody wouldn't want to update the public list, but you can turn that off if you want to as well. Okay. The things that I actually wanted to particularly show you is I actually was down in Vegas not too long ago. Maybe I even think it was this year. No, this was back in November. I think I've been down there again this year, but we were working with a group of people, and they draw a lot of trend lines. It's the group that we work with is a company called with Oscar Carboni. He does a lot of events with us, and one of the guys had a request, and he said, well, every time when I draw trend lines or when I draw tools, I want to be able to keep drawing tools until I decide I don't want to draw tools anymore. And I thought that was a really, really good suggestion. I came back to the office, I wrote it up, and then somebody showed me this option. I was like, wow, that's really cool. I didn't know you could do this. But if you do draw a lot of tools, you'll see there's an option right here. If you want to be able to draw a lot of lines and just kind of focus on the lines that you're drawing, whether they're trend lines or whatever, there's an option right here that says return to select mode after drawing. If that's selected, I'm going to leave that selected for now. But if that's selected and I draw a trend line, what's going to happen is once I draw that trend line, it's going to kind of go back into a mode, and the assumption is I can then do other things. Okay. Now, if I want to draw a lot of trend lines, I'm working on putting some channels on the chart and all that kind of stuff. I want to be able, there is an option for me to uncheck that, and that just allows me to draw multiple trend lines without really worrying about kind of going back over there and clicking on the trend line tool. So if I unselect that, let me go back into that application properties here. I'm going to unselect the return to select mode after drawing. Okay. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and select the trend line tool, and it just stays in the trend line tool. So if I'm drawing a lot of channels and I just kind of want to mark up a chart, I can just stay in that tool. And then when I want to exit that tool, I just hit escape on the keyboard. So that's an option, and I actually just learned about that back in November. I think it's a really, really cool tool. That's actually one of the main things that I wanted to show to you as well. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you here is under chart options. If you're ever working with a bunch of charts, a lot of times I'll open up a chart with a template and I want to stay in a very specific view when I'm switching charts. Maybe I've run a scan or that kind of stuff, and I just want to kind of go through the list of stocks, or I just want to jump through some charts looking at, I don't know, one of the templates with the indicators I'm used to. Okay. If I come into the chart options page, there is an option right here when I change instruments. I can either use smart charts. With smart charts, if I've made trend lines on the chart or annotations on the chart, it'll remember that for me and it'll automatically be there. Or if I want to kind of look at it as a template, if I want to have the same template applied, I can use the chart as the template. Okay, and that'll just mean if I've got like a special add-on or a template that I've created with some indicators on there, it'll remember that and it'll just stay in that particular template until I change it manually. So for me personally, I've been back and forth. I'll go through things where I just want to, okay, I ran my scan this morning for, let's say victory buys, okay? So I want to look at them all with this victory template. I found that lately I've been using more smart charts. I've been taking more notes on my chart. And so smart charts is very, very helpful for me. And so I'll just use it as smart charts. So, I want to look at all of the lines or the text or anything that I'd actually put on the chart manually. And for that, I use smart charts. But it's up to you. It's a toggle. You can toggle it back and forth anytime that you want to. The top option will just go to the view that you normally look at the last time you looked at that stock. If you haven't looked at that stock before, to apply the default template. If you want to use just a template and just go through a list of stocks, the second option. Okay, I think that's really what I wanted to kind of cover within the application properties. So let's go to tip number 5. No questions. If you do have questions, let me know. I hope this is helpful too. So anyway, indicator drop-down list. So this one was in the list of like tips and tricks and things like that you could do. I think it's a little bit less important. One of the things that they added recently, I think it was like in 17, it might have been 18, might have been even in 16. I mean, they've been making so many changes to MetaStock lately, is the most recently used indicators. And with that one, like all of the indicators that you use most recently just automatically put at the front top. So it makes it way easier than, well, it used to be to find the indicators that you're using, especially if there's like 10 or so that you're using on a regular basis. You want to throw a moving average on there. I'm sure that's one of the most recently used. If you do wish to, though, you can actually go in and kind of eliminate indicators that you're not interested in. Okay, and then kind of simplify the list. Again, I think this is a less important power tip than it used to be, because I really like the fact that it keeps those most recently used indicators at the top. But if you do want to kind of come in here and narrow down your quick list, you can go into it. And if you right click on it, you notice I kind of made the list kind of, I go back into small mode. But if I want to come in here, I can come in here and I kind of go to my quick list properties. And I can actually select any indicator that I'm not interested in, and it won't show up in that indicator quick list. So if I wanted to just have maybe 5 indicators, let's say that the top 5, just to kind of keep things fast here, I'll go ahead and click on OK. And now I just have those 5 indicators that are on there. So if you want to pare down that list, if you want to kind of just have just a list of the indicators that you're really familiar with and you want to be able to use those and find them, obviously those 5 are really, really easy to find. Go in there and kind of customize your list. So again, that's up to you if you want to do that. I find that the fact that they added that most recently used indicator so helpful. So in any case, I'm gonna go ahead and undo that change real quick, just so that next time somebody's in here, they're not like, where'd all my indicators go? How do I get them back? Quick list properties. Okay, we'll go ahead and check them all. Click OK. All those indicators are back now. Okay. Tip number 6 is choose instrument and what do the options do. Okay, this one is another one that once in a while you find something that you've kind of been doing for a while, and somebody will kind of point something out. You're like, and it changes the way you use the software forever. An example of that for me in Windows is like one of my friends out here at work showed me Windows Shift S, which will take a screenshot and put it in your clipboard. Try it. It's actually a pretty cool tool. Windows Shift S is a tick for that. It'll ask you to kind of draw a box. It makes a picture of your screen and puts it in your clipboard. I use it all the time. A similar tip for that for MetaStock, and it took me a while to kind of even realize this was there. I think I had been at MetaStock for like 10 years by the time I figured this out. But if I'm looking at a chart and I just want to jump to a different chart, you could go into the Power Console, open up the chart, and view it the normal way. But you can also just type in a symbol. So, and I love that so much. It's the only way I kind of flip through charts really quickly now. Okay, so right here we're looking at the Dow Industrial Average. I'm going to go ahead and just type in a new symbol. Okay, and again, look, because I only have the US stocks, there's only one option for Apple. It makes it way easier to find because of the first tip. Okay, but I can just type in that symbol and I can jump to it. Okay, I can type in Indie symbol and I can jump to it. Okay, so easy to do, so easy to accomplish. And I was like, wait a minute, it changed my life when I was using MetaStock. So you probably already knew that one. But anytime you want to put in a symbol, just start typing. You don't have to click on anything or anything like that. Now, since we are talking about switching between lists and that kind of stuff, I want to kind of talk about a few other options. I'm just looking to see if we have questions. We don't. But okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on here. Under if I ran a scan, and I saved that list and I opened a stock from that list, the list that I'd be looking at would be whatever was in that list already. So let's say, for example, I ran a buy signal list scan and I saved that as a list and then I opened the first one. This would be just the stocks that were on that list, okay? So I could just see those, okay? And the other thing is, if I am on a list, that's a really common workflow. I love to run scans, I love to save the list, and I love to be able to just arrow through the chart. So if that's a workflow that you've done, you don't have to come into here. If you just want to be able to arrow through the different stocks on the list, there's a little right arrow here that'll take you to the next stock on your list and the next stock on your list and the next stock on your list. So a couple tips there. The other thing, we were talking about the application properties, like the chart switch properties, the difference between keeping a smart chart and using the chart as a template. You can also select that right here as well. Use smart charts or use chart as template, either way, okay? So there you go, easy. All right, tip number 6. All right. Oh, that was tip 6. Tip number 7, customizing toolbars. I wanted to show you this because, you know, I do like the way that the trend lines and the toolbars and the drawing tools are kind of set up in MetaStock. You know, I thought it was a really good idea with the rotating toolbar that you could kind of go and arrow through the toolbars that you're using. And for most people, that's really, really good because they may not be using Fibonacci tools all the time. Okay, but I want you to know that you can actually customize the toolbar interface and have exactly what you want. So let me kind of just show you that, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and close the data window for now. I'll just click on this arrow. And the first thing I wanted to show you in terms of when it comes to customizing toolbars is that you can move them around. So for example, right here, I've got a favorites toolbar. And if I wanted to move that to a different location to free up a little bit of space here, I could put it right here. Okay, and then that whole toolbar, since there's nothing on it, goes away. Okay, if I prefer, I could put it over here as such. And again, saving a little bit of real estate here on the chart, giving me a little bit more chart room. Okay, if I want to have it, if I wanted to start a toolbar over here on the other side, for example, we'll just go ahead and drag it. I can put it right here on the other side. You see right here, I can just dock it over there and it's going to be right there for me. So very, very cool. I can also, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, I'm going to kind of move this back into a default configuration or more of a default configuration. I want it here. Okay, go here. Okay, we'll just leave it there. I can also, like, if I do a lot of, like we do have the rotating toolbar, which gives you more options as you arrow through it. If I always wanted to have one of these rotating toolbars available, let's say I do a lot of studies with Fibonacci or things like that, what you can do is that you right click kind of in an empty area of the chart. And what I'm going to do is there's like toolbars here that I can kind of select. So we've got trend line. Let's say I wanted to do a data or a text toolbar. Let's go ahead and turn on the text toolbar. Okay, that pops open just the text toolbar, and then I can kind of move that to where I want to. But that way you can kind of define exactly what toolbars you want open. And it's very, very helpful if you're using a lot of drawing tools. So, and also you can reposition them as well. I'm going to try and move this back because it wasn't kind of moving exactly where I wanted to, but we'll see if we can get it. Oh, now I'm just floating it. I definitely don't want to float it. We'll just leave it up here for now. Okay. The next tip, tip number 8, is custom toolbars. So I love the custom toolbar. If there's like a lot of templates that you use on a regular basis and you want to be able to quickly get to them, the custom toolbar is exactly for that. With the custom toolbar, I can set up a button. I can put that button towards a template. I could have it launch a different program. Just about anything that I want to. I could even have it open a website if I wanted to. So let me show you how it works and how to set up custom toolbars. Mostly what I use for is I'll use it to kind of identify on my personal machine. I want to be I told you about that broad market layout. I have that as a button. There's also some of the templates and the different views that I like to switch between. I'll put as buttons. And that makes it very, very easy because you can just click on the button and it kind of pops up. So to set up a custom toolbar, this is the custom toolbar by default. It's right around here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just right click on it, and I'm going to go to custom toolbar properties. Okay. Here's the buttons that exist there. There's the clean, the popular, the RMO trade model. Those are kind of the standard default buttons. Let's say I wanted to put one that kind of goes to a layout or a chart or something along those lines. I can add buttons or I can subtract buttons to the chart. Okay, so and I can even reorder them. So let's go ahead and type in new right here. And then the first thing it's going to have me do is specify what I want on the button. Okay, now I'm going to add a template or a layout. I'll probably add a template because I'm not sure there's a lot of layouts on here, but let's add a template. So what I'm going to do, the first thing is I have to point to it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on browse right here. And it's going to bring up a bit of a, what do you want to open, right? So I want to be able to point to this here. So in the case of templates, I can tell you, just because I know all of your templates are going to be in the documents folder in a MetaStock subfolder. So I'm going to browse and go ahead and click on documents here. And I'm going to go to MetaStock right here. Okay, and now I'll be able to see a list of all of the templates that are in here. There's also some themes. I'm going to kind of go down here, and let's say that I wanted to, oh, this is a good one. This is actually one of the ones that I put together because it does all the automatic drawing studies, the dynamic trading tools. So I'm going to go ahead and point to this one. We're going to go ahead and click on open. I'm going to go ahead and click on next right here, and then I can define an icon for it. So there's numbers. Any of these icons I can use. I'm going to use this pen. Go ahead and click on next. I can put on a stream tip. So that's just if I hover over one of them, it's going to tell me exactly what it is. That's the tooltip that pops up when I hover over it. I could go ahead and click on next. And then there's a little prompt that'll show up in the status bar. I can kind of customize that as well. Dynamic trading tools is fine. I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. Okay. And you'll notice that it's going to put that template right on my toolbar. Okay, now I can move it up, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually move it to the top here. So I can then reorder it and that kind of stuff. If I decide I don't want this one, I can delete them off. It's pretty customizable. You can also you could have it load up a website. Like if you wanted to have it load up your brokerage site or something, you could do that. You could have it load another program. But I'm just going to do this for now. I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. My little thumbtack is there. Now, if I want to apply that dynamic trading tools to an open chart, I've got Microsoft open. I just click on it. It goes ahead and applies those dynamic trading tool template to the chart, and that's what I'm looking at right now. So there you go. It's an easy tip. I do like to add a few things, and it's really easy to right click and go to apply template, but now I don't have to do that. I can just click on the plus or the thumbtack. So there you go. Okay, tip number 9, clearing smart charts. So we talked a little bit about smart charts, what's involved there. I do like smart charts because I do keep track of kind of all the notes and the lines and the studies and the indicators and the stuff that you might be used to. Once in a while, you might want to be able to go in and just kind of clear out all the smart charts. Start over with a default template and just kind of start over. Maybe you're kind of changing the indicators that you use in your investment style a little bit, or maybe you just want all of your notes to kind of go away so that you can kind of have everything fresh. So with, I think it was 17, maybe 18, I don't know. It's hard to keep track of because I've made so many really good changes to MetaStock. But if you ever do want to start fresh and kind of start over, and you want to delete all of those smart charts, come to the File menu, click on Delete Smart Charts. Okay. Now the thing is you'll want to close all your open charts first. Okay. Close all your open charts, delete the smart charts. It'll get rid of all of the kind of notes, and you'll be starting over from new. So there you go. Okay. That's an easy one, right? Tip number 10. Backing up your work. So obviously, if you're using MetaStock a little bit or a lot, and you have files that you want to save, maybe you've created some expert advisors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you want to be able to back everything up so that if something happens or you want to move it to a different machine, you want to be able to kind of save your work. So in that same menu, one of the things that they added was backup user files. So if I click on File, Backup User Files, I can go ahead and click on that. It'll ask me where I want to save that. I can save that anywhere I want to on my hard drive. It makes up a backup file, and it's an all automated process. Very, very easy to do. Very easy to do. And something that I'd recommend you do every little bit of time, especially if you're writing a lot of formulas. It's very nice it just feels nicer to have a backup. If you're upgrading to MetaStock, actually MetaStock will do this automatically, but maybe you want a different backup just in case something happens. Nobody ever regretted not making a backup. And it only takes a second or two. So back up your user files with Control K, or just go to the File menu and hit Backup Files. Okay. So that was trading tip number 10. And that's how many tips I promised today, but I thought I'd do one more. Thought I'd do a bonus tip. So, and I think this is so easy. I decided to do, I only promised 10, but here's an 11th one. I wanted to show you how to set up a quick pre-filter scan because it's super easy to do. It's something that like a lot of people comes up a lot. I want to just build a list of stocks that have a certain close value, that are trading within a certain price point, that have a value, a volume number that is kind of where I want it to be. I want to create a pre-filter exploration so that I can kind of only focus when I run my scans every day on the stocks that I'm actually interested in trading. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's super easy. There is a little bit of formula involved, but it's not hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Power Console here. Okay, I'm going to click on the scanner. Okay, the Explorer. Okay, and right here in the top, there's a button that says New Exploration. I'm going to click on it. Boom. Okay, I'm going to name my scan. You can name it whatever you want. Mine's going to be a just pre-filter. Okay, and the notes. The notes, if you hover over an expiration, it tells you what it's scanning for. This is where that comes from. So usually when I'm writing a little pre-filter scan, I'll put some notes in terms of what I'm doing, just so that like if I'm running it 4 or 5 months ago, I can remember what I did. So in this particular case, I'm going to filter out stocks, filter stocks between, let's say 5 and 50 bucks. We'll leave it there. And you don't even have to spell it right. At $50. That have at least 500,000 shares. Okay, so those are what we're going to look for. You can, it doesn't matter what you type here, but it will pop up and tell you whatever you've done. So it's handy to have a little bit of notes. Now, if I want to build a stock, that scan, obviously I want a few things. I want the close to be greater than 50, and I want the close to be less than 500. How easy is that? And I want the volume to be greater than 500,000. That's the scan. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and click on OK there. That pre-filter scan, I'm just going to search for it. Another thing I really liked was that they added in 19. Going to do that search. You'll see I did this in a formula class a couple weeks ago, but it is a good tip. It comes up all the time. People ask. I actually have a blog, like a little blog post that I wrote that kind of goes through this step by step. Let me go ahead and click into this. Okay, now I can run that exploration. It's going to weed out any of the stocks that are, it's going to make a list of all of the stocks that are between 5 and 50 bucks that have that 500,000 volume. I can save that list. And instead of scanning everything every day, I can just scan the ones that fit in that, and my scans will run faster and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that's a nice bonus tip for you. So that's your bonus tip. Number 11, set up a pre-filter scan. I think that's something everybody can use because some people just want to be able, hey, I don't want to trade that stock. It doesn't have enough volume, or that stock's too expensive. They're very, very easy to go ahead and put in together that pre-filter scan. So there you go. That's really it. 30 years in a row, number 1. We just won it again. And unfortunately, I didn't update that slide, but that's okay. 30 years in a row, it's been rated 1. I'm interested. Again, this was a video that was targeted to people that are using MetaStock. I'd like to know in the comments or whatever, if you watch the video, if these were helpful tips for you. If you have tips that I should include for a future video, put them in. I'd love to hear them. But I hope that's helpful for you. I think even if you just start with tip number 1 and that's all you do, It's going to make MetaStock easier for you. So I hope those tips are helpful for you. So the last thing I'll say is if you're using MetaStock, great, thank you. I appreciate that. If you want to try out MetaStock, as I kind of alluded to earlier, it's been rated #1 30 years in a row. We do have a special offer. What we do is we call it an extended trial. So we have 2 versions of MetaStock. We have a real-time version that's $265 per month. And we have an end-of-day version that starts at $69 per month. And so I'm just going to end with a special offer. If you buy a month, we're going to give you a 2nd and 3rd month for free. Our support team is awesome. If you have any questions, they're going to help you get started. They do have actually a training session that they'll go through with you. We call it a white glove installation where they kind of go in. If you need help installing, they'll help you install. If you want help running tests or scans, they'll answer any question you've got. We set up a 2-hour appointment window for them to kind of help you with it. So if you haven't tried out MetaStock, we'll give you that 3-month trial. With our end of day program, the MetaStock DC, it's $69 a month. We'll give you 3 months for that, so it'll be $23 per month. That's going to include MetaStock, data for the region of your choice, the white glove installation and support, and also some training what we call Unleash the Power of MetaStock. So if you want to do it, you should. I love MetaStock. 800-882-3040, metastock.com/sales chat or metastock.com/3for1. So anyway, what do you think? Was the video helpful for you today? If it was, comment, like, subscribe, do all those fun things. This one I really just kind of wanted to give you a couple of power tips, and I hope it was helpful. No matter what, even if it wasn't, thanks for using MetaStock. Thanks for watching the video. It's good to see you here, and I hope to see you at a video again in the future. So stay well, stay healthy. See you next time.